I kissed my stepfather and destroyed my marriage. What if the one person you should never want the person tied to your most painful, forbidden past suddenly crashes back into your life like a hurricane threatening to tear down everything you've worked so hard to build? For Olivia, that person was Julian, her stepfather, a man she hadn't seen in 10 years, but never truly escaped. It was a crisp autumn morning in Havenwood, Massachusetts, the kind where fiery red and golden leaves fluttered down like fragile memories. Olivia's life seemed settled, a dependable husband Michael, a steady rhythm of routines and a carefully constructed sense of safety. But then her mother's unexpected phone call shattered the illusion. Julian was back in town, and with him came a storm of emotions Olivia thought she had buried deep beneath years of distance. The moment Julian stepped through the door of her childhood home, everything shifted. Older, marked by time with silver strands at his temples and deep lines around eyes that still held a magnetic charm, he carried a presence that was impossible to ignore. For Olivia, his arrival was like a crack in her carefully sealed world, an invitation to revisit feelings she didn't want to acknowledge. During the dinner, her mother eagerly hosted, Julian's eyes found Olivia's across the table more times than polite conversation would allow. Each glance felt charged with an unspoken history, a secret language spoken only by those who had shared a complicated past. A fleeting touch as he poured her wine sent an electric jolt she couldn't explain or didn't want to. Even as Michael, her husband, remained blissfully unaware, Olivia's mind raced with confusion and guilt. Michael was everything she was supposed to want, kind, reliable, the safe harbor in her life's storm. But Julian stirred something far more dangerous inside her, a raw, aching desire and memories that refused to stay buried. When Julian cornered her later in the garden shed, his questions cut deeper than any words should. "What do you really want, Olivia?" he asked, piercing through the armor she'd built around herself. In that cramped, dimly lit space, filled with the scent of earth and old wood time, seemed to stand still. Her heart pounded with the weight of choices she hadn't dared to make. Then the unthinkable happened. Their lips met in a kiss, sudden, forbidden, yet somehow inevitable. It was a moment charged with all the contradictions of their tangled past, desire and danger, passion and regret. The walls Olivia had built crumbled with that single touch, leaving her breathless and shaken. Now Olivia stands on the edge of a precipice. The stable life she'd fought so hard for is unraveling thread by thread. The question lingers in the air: can she resist the pull of a connection so taboo, so fraught with risk, or will she surrender to a temptation that could destroy everything she holds dear? No one can ever know what happened between Olivia and Julian that day. But what would you do if faced with a choice between safety and desire? Would you run, confess, or dare to embrace the forbidden? If this emotional storm has you hooked, stay with me, because the story is just beginning. The days after Julian's return felt like walking on a razor's edge. Every interaction with him was a battle between what was right and what felt undeniably wrong. Olivia tried to bury the turmoil beneath layers of routine, but Julian's presence was a persistent thorn scraping away at her carefully cultivated composure. At home, Michael was the picture of normalcy, attentive but oblivious to the storm swirling inside Olivia's heart. His steady hand on her knee during dinner, his soft questions about her day, all felt distant and hollow now. She wanted to love him as she once had, but the spark had dimmed, replaced by an ache she couldn't explain. Julian, on the other hand, with his effortless charm and piercing gaze, seemed to see parts of her no one else did, or perhaps that no one else wanted to see. Olivia's mother, Eleanor, was thrilled by Julian's return. She gushed about his travels and business ventures with a pride that felt almost desperate, as if trying to recapture a past that had slipped away. But Olivia knew better. Beneath Julian's polished stories was a restless, insatiable man who thrived on control and unpredictability, a man who had always been a threat to her peace. The tension was palpable the night of Michael's networking event. The house buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, yet Olivia felt trapped in a world that was no longer hers. Julian moved through the crowd with an unsettling ease, his eyes frequently locking with hers, sending waves of electricity through her. Eleanor insisted on Julian's presence, brushing off Olivia's discomfort as mere nerves. When dessert plates were suddenly needed from the garden shed, Olivia seized the chance to escape the crowded house. The cool night air was a balm, scented with fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Inside the shed, the confined space made every breath heavier, every glance more charged. Julian's calm, probing voice broke the silence. "How's life really treating you, Liv?" Olivia's safe, rehearsed answers fell away under his gaze. She tried to keep her distance, but every word, every touch was laced with meaning. Their hands brushed briefly as he took the plates, a fleeting contact that sent shivers down her spine. She told herself it was nothing, just a coincidence, but the fire kindled within her refused to be ignored. Julian's words cut deeper than any touch. "You seem different. Maybe you've just buried a vital part of yourself very deep." Her throat tightened. Could she admit the truth to him, or even to herself? Life was comfortable, yes, but passionless, empty. She longed for something more, something alive. That moment in the shed was a turning point. When Julian leaned closer, his voice low and husky, Olivia felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble. Their lips met in a kiss that was both terrifying and inevitable, a collision of past desire and present confusion. His hand brushed her arm, sending waves of sensation that left her breathless and trembling. The sound of Michael's laughter from inside shattered the moment. Olivia pulled away, her cheeks burning with shame and longing. Julian's eyes held a storm of emotions, regret, desire, something darker, before he stepped back and left her alone in the shadows. Back inside the house, the party continued, unaware of the silent battle raging within Olivia. She forced a smile, laughed at casual jokes, but her mind replayed the kiss on an endless loop. Guilt gnawed at her, yet the craving for Julian's attention only grew stronger. In the following days, Julian's visits became more frequent. He showed up unannounced at Eleanor's, offering help with gardening or odd jobs around the house. Each encounter was charged with unspoken tension. His casual touches, the brush of his knee against hers, the lingering glances, all wove a dangerous web she found impossible to resist. Michael, ever the reliable husband, noticed Olivia's distraction. One evening at dinner, he gently asked, "Is everything okay?" "You've been different lately." She lied, tired from work, stressed by responsibilities, but his concerned gaze told her he knew something was wrong. The weight of her secret pressed down harder. Olivia began paying closer attention to herself. She chose outfits that made her feel alive, practiced smiles in the mirror, convinced herself it was all for Michael. But deep inside, she craved Julian's approval, the way he looked at her, like she was more than just a wife, like she was someone with a wild, untamed fire waiting to be unleashed. One afternoon, while Michael was at work and Eleanor away, Julian found her in the garage attempting to restore an old wooden chair. The air smelled of sawdust and paint, a familiar scent from her childhood. Julian crouched beside her, offering advice with a crooked smile. Their hands brushed repeatedly, igniting sparks that set her nerves alight. "Do you always stare this much?" Olivia teased, trying to lighten the mood. "Only when the company's worth staring at," he smirked, eyes locked on hers. The playful banter faded into a heavy silence, the kind filled with things neither dared to say aloud. Julian's voice dropped. "Olivia, tell me you don't feel it too." Her heart pounded. Could she admit the truth? Could she admit that the forbidden connection between them was real and raw, defying all reason? Before she could answer, their lips met again, this time, slower, deeper, more consuming. The kiss spoke of longing and regret, of a passion that had never truly died. Olivia's hands gripped Julian's shirt as she surrendered to the moment, caught between guilt and desperate need. Michael's sudden arrival shattered their fragile bubble. They pulled apart, breathless and trembling. Michael's eyes searched Olivia's suspicion, flickering briefly before he masked it with a casual remark. The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments and mounting guilt. Olivia became adept at hiding the turmoil inside her. She laughed, Joked played the devoted wife, but the truth gnawed at her soul. Michael noticed the change but said nothing more than concerned questions that Olivia brushed off. Yet the cracks in their marriage were growing wider with each secret meeting, each lingering glance. Julian's hold over Olivia tightened. He appeared more frequently, lingered longer, and spoke less of business and more of them, of what could be, of what had never truly ended. One evening, as Olivia prepared for dinner, she chose a silk dress that shimmered softly in the dim light. A flicker of shame followed by a rush of anticipation swept through her. Was this for Michael or for Julian? At dinner, Julian's eyes found hers again, the unspoken conversation between them thick with tension. When he offered to help clear the table, Olivia hesitated before nodding. In the quiet kitchen, their fingers brushed once more. Julian's soft voice echoed his earlier words, "You're quiet tonight, Olivia." Before either could say more, Michael entered, oblivious to the charged atmosphere. Olivia's heart raced as she turned away, hiding the tempest inside. The situation reached a breaking point one afternoon in the garage. Julian worked on the battered chair while Olivia leaned against the workbench, emotions tangled and raw. He admitted, "I never wanted to make things harder for you." She looked up, voice hollow. "You didn't. I feel like I've done nothing but complicate your life," he confessed. Olivia's world tilted. It was true, her life was a tangle, a web of emotions and impossible choices. "It's not that simple," she whispered. Julian stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "But that doesn't change how I feel." The air between them grew thick with tension. Julian's chisel slipped and lodged in the wood, cursing under his breath. Olivia knelt beside him to help, their hands brushing again, a jolt of electricity pulsing through her. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway startled them. Michael was home earlier than expected. Michael, Olivia whispered, heart racing. Julian stepped back, expression unreadable. "Go," he said quietly. Michael entered the garage, sensing the tension, but masking his concerns with a casual question about the chair's restoration. Dinner was called, and Julian left soon after, leaving Olivia alone with a storm raging inside her. That night, as Olivia lay beside Michael, the weight of her secret felt unbearable. The lines between love, desire, guilt, and betrayal blurred into a tangled mess she couldn't unravel. She was trapped between a past that refused to stay buried and a present that demanded her loyalty. Olivia's world was unraveling, and the choices she faced were more complicated and devastating than she could have ever imagined. The following weeks were a slow-burning agony for Olivia, a dance on the edge of a blade. Each day was a careful performance, a balancing act between the life she had and the forbidden desires stirring within her. Julian's presence was a constant shadow, his every word and touch igniting a fire she both feared and craved. At home, Michael grew more perceptive. His questions, once gentle, now carried an undercurrent of suspicion. "Are you sure everything's fine?" he asked one evening, his voice low and steady. Olivia's lies felt heavier with each passing day, the weight crushing her spirit. She longed to confess, to unburden herself, but the consequences were too terrifying to imagine. Julian, meanwhile, was relentless. His visits to Eleanor's house became more frequent, less casual. He lingered in the spaces Olivia inhabited, filling the air with a tension that crackled like electricity. Sometimes, when no one else was around, he would catch her eye across the room, and in that silent exchange, entire conversations passed, promises, regrets, temptations. One rainy afternoon, Olivia found herself alone with Julian in the living room. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil inside her. He sat close, a blanket draped over their shoulders, and for a moment the world outside ceased to exist. "Why do you keep running, Olivia?" Julian asked softly, his eyes searching hers. She swallowed hard, the words trapped in her throat. "Because I'm scared," she finally admitted. "Scared of what this means, of what we've done." Julian nodded, understanding etched in the lines of his face. "I'm scared too, but some things aren't meant to be ignored." His hand found hers beneath the blanket, fingers entwining with hers. The contact sent warmth through her, a reminder of the connection they once shared, and perhaps still did. Days later, Olivia's carefully maintained facade began to crack further. She caught herself stealing glances at Julian when she thought no one was watching, felt a thrill when his gaze lingered on her a moment too long. The guilt gnawed at her relentlessly, but the pull was undeniable. Michael's concern deepened. One evening, as they sat across from each other at the dinner table, he reached out his hand covering hers. "Liv, what's going on? You're not the same woman I married." She forced a smile, but the tears burned behind her eyes. "I'm just tired, Michael." He didn't press further, but the silence that followed was heavier than words. Then came the moment that shattered the fragile equilibrium. Eleanor called Olivia late one night, her voice trembling. "Julian's had an accident," she said, barely above a whisper. "He's in the hospital." Olivia's heart plunged. The man who had stirred so much pain, confusion, and longing was suddenly vulnerable, and the thought of losing him before she'd sorted her feelings was unbearable. At the hospital, Julian lay pale and still, hooked to machines that beeped rhythmically. Olivia sat by his bedside, her hand resting lightly on his. The sharp contrast between the man she saw now and the one who haunted her memories was almost too much to bear. When Julian's eyes fluttered open, they found hers immediately. A weak smile touched his lips. "Liv," he whispered, his voice raw but steady. Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "Don't scare me like that." In the quiet of the hospital room, the barriers between them dissolved. Julian's hand squeezed hers, a silent plea for connection, for forgiveness, for something neither could yet name. Back home, Michael sensed the shift, but remained unaware of the depths. Olivia's visits to the hospital became frequent, each one another thread in a dangerous tapestry. One evening, as Olivia left the hospital, her phone buzzed with a message from Michael. "Can we talk tonight?" Her heart raced. The confrontation she'd been avoiding was looming. That night, they sat in the living room, the air thick with unspoken tension. Michael's voice was calm but firm. "Liv, I know something's going on. You don't have to hide it from me." She shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "I can't. It's complicated." He reached for her hand. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." But Olivia knew that some things couldn't be shared, not without shattering everything. The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments and near confessions. Julian's recovery was slow but steady, and with it their connection deepened. One afternoon, Julian surprised Olivia at her house. Eleanor was out, Michael at work. The house was quiet, the perfect setting for the forbidden encounter. They sat close on the couch, the silence stretching between them. Julian began, his voice low and urgent. "We can't keep pretending this isn't real." Her breath caught. "What do you want from me?" Everything, he said simply. "I want you, all of you." The intensity of his gaze made her knees weak. She knew the risks, the pain that would follow. But in that moment, desire overwhelmed reason. They kissed again, slower, more deliberately, as if trying to memorize every detail before the inevitable fallout. Suddenly, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped them back to reality. Olivia jumped up, heart pounding, as Michael stepped through the door. Julian quickly stood, smoothing his clothes, a mask of calm settling over him. Michael's eyes flicked between them, suspicion darkening his expression. "Everything okay in here?" "Yes," Olivia replied quickly, forcing a smile. "Just catching up." But the words rang hollow. The tension in the room was palpable, an unspoken secret threatening to spill over. In the days after Michael's behavior changed, he was more distant, more watchful. Olivia felt the walls closing and the weight of her deception crushing her. One evening, she found herself alone with Michael in the kitchen. His voice was quiet but firm. "Liv, I love you. But if there's something going on, you need to tell me." Her resolve broke. Tears spilled down her face as she shook her head. "I'm so sorry, Michael. I don't know what to do." He pulled her into a hug, but the damage was done. Olivia was caught in a whirlwind of guilt and longing, trapped between two men and two lives. Her nights were restless, haunted by memories of Julian's touch and Michael's steady presence. She knew she was running out of time. Julian's visits became more desperate. He spoke of leaving town, starting over, but Olivia knew she couldn't abandon the life she'd built or the man who believed in her. One night, as a storm raged outside, Julian confessed, "I don't want to be the shadow in your life anymore. But I can't let you go." Her heart broke. "Neither can I." The silence that followed was heavier than words. Olivia realized she was at a crossroads where every path was fraught with pain and loss. Could she find a way to reconcile her past with her present, or was she destined to watch everything she loved unravel? The choice was hers, but the cost was unimaginable. The storm that had been quietly brewing finally broke with a force that left nothing untouched. Olivia found herself trapped in a whirlwind of consequences that threatened to destroy every part of her carefully built life. The night it all came to a head started like any other, but beneath the surface, tension crackled like lightning. Michael had planned a quiet dinner at home, hoping to reconnect to pull Olivia back from the distance that had grown between them. Olivia wanted to be there truly present, but the weight of her secrets made it impossible. Julian's name hovered between them like a dark cloud, unspoken but unavoidable. Olivia's heart thudded painfully as Michael's gaze searched hers for answers she couldn't give. After dinner, Michael suggested a walk to clear the air. They stepped out into the cool night, the crisp air sharpening their senses. "Liv," Michael began, his voice low and earnest, "I need to know the truth."
What's really going on?
Olivia swallowed hard. The words felt like knives poised to cut, but silence would only tear them apart. I haven't been honest," she admitted, voice trembling. "Julian is back. He's been here and I've been seeing him." Michael stopped walking, shock rippling across his face. "Seeing him?" "Olivia, what does that mean?" Tears filled her eyes. "I don't know anymore. I'm so confused. It started with old feelings, memories I thought I'd buried, but it's more than that now. I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant for this to happen." Michael's face twisted in pain. "How long since he came back?" "It's been weeks." The world seemed to tilt beneath their feet as Michael absorbed the truth. His voice was low but filled with hurt. "Olivia, this isn't just about him, is it? It's about us." Olivia nodded, ashamed. "I don't know who I am anymore." The vulnerability between them was raw and fragile. Michael reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. "We need to figure this out. Together." But even as he spoke, Olivia's heart whispered a different truth, that some things could never be fixed. The following days were a whirlwind of conversations, arguments, and tears. Michael tried to understand, to forgive, but the fracture was deep. Olivia felt herself unraveling, caught between guilt and desire, loyalty and longing. Julian was no longer a shadow, but a looming presence in every moment. He pushed for honesty, for a future that included them both, but Olivia's fear held her back. One afternoon, Eleanor confronted Olivia. Her mother's eyes were sharp, accusing. "You have to make a choice, Olivia. This can't go on." The ultimatum shattered any remaining illusions. Olivia knew Eleanor was right. She couldn't live divided between two worlds. Julian, sensing the mounting pressure, became more desperate. "I can't keep living in the shadows," he said one night, voice thick with emotion. "I want you, all of you." Olivia's heart ached. "I want that too, but the cost." The silence that followed was filled with everything they couldn't say. Michael's patience waned. One evening, after a heated argument, he packed a bag. "I need space, Olivia. We both do." Her world collapsed. Alone in the quiet house, she finally let herself break. Days turned into weeks. The distance between Olivia and Michael grew, filled with unanswered questions and regrets. Julian tried to fill the void, but the illicit passion that had once burned so bright began to flicker under the weight of reality. Olivia's internal battle raged on. She loved Michael, steady, kind Michael, and the life they had built. But Julian's return had awakened something she couldn't deny, a wildness, a raw intensity that made her feel alive and seen in ways she never had before. She questioned everything: her marriage, her desires, her own sense of self. One rainy night, Olivia found herself at the crossroads of her own heart. She sat alone in the garden raindrops, soaking her hair as memories flooded in. Julian's voice echoed in her mind. Some things don't fade. Some connections are etched too deep. Michael's steady presence called to her in another way, a safe harbor in the storm. Could she reconcile these parts of herself? Could she forgive and be forgiven? Her phone buzzed with a message from Julian. "I'm leaving town tomorrow, if you want to say goodbye." Her fingers trembled as she typed a response. "Meet me at the old shed, tonight." That night, beneath the whispering trees and pouring rain, Olivia and Julian met one last time. The shed was a sanctuary and a prison, the place where everything had begun and where it would all end. Their eyes locked heavy with unspoken words and fading hope. Julian took her hands in his. "Whatever happens, know this. You changed me. You still do." Olivia's tears mingled with the rain. "I'm so sorry." They kissed one final time, a bittersweet farewell, charged with the weight of love and loss. Julian stepped back, his silhouette disappearing into the darkness. Olivia stood alone, the rain washing away the remnants of a forbidden passion. The next morning, Michael returned home. He found Olivia waiting, vulnerability etched on her face. "I want to try," she whispered, "to heal, to rebuild." Michael pulled her close, the promise of forgiveness and renewal between them. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in weeks, Olivia felt a flicker of hope. Her heart was scarred but alive, a testament to the storm she had weathered and the strength she had found within. Sometimes the fiercest battles we fight are within ourselves. Olivia's journey wasn't just about forbidden love or painful betrayal. It was a raw, messy exploration of identity, forgiveness, and the courage to face what lurks in the shadows of our hearts. She stood at the crossroads of desire and duty, torn between a past that haunted her and a future she longed to reclaim. What makes her story so heartbreaking yet hopeful is the human truth that no matter how far we try to run from ourselves, the parts of us that matter most will always find a way back. The danger, the thrill, the guilt, they're all intertwined, but beneath it all lies a simple, aching need to be seen, understood, and loved for who we truly are. Olivia's choice to face her mistakes, to seek healing, and to rebuild trust reminds us that even the deepest wounds can begin to heal when met with honesty and compassion. Her story is a testament to the complexity of love and the resilience of the human spirit. But the question remains, could you forgive such a betrayal? Could you find it within yourself to rebuild a life fractured by secrets and temptation? Or are some fires too fierce, destined to burn everything down? I want to hear your thoughts. What would you do if you were in Olivia's shoes? Would you run from the past or confront it head on? How far can love stretch before it breaks? Drop your honest reactions and theories in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about the gray areas of the heart, the messy realities we often keep hidden. If Olivia's story moved, you hit that like button. It really helps me know that you're ready to dive deep into these emotional journeys together. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story that challenges your heart and mind. Thank you for being here, for sharing in this complicated, painful, and ultimately hopeful story. Remember, sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most meaningful destinations. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and I'll see you in the next story.